I should say that. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. Now, if you haven't already, please take a brief moment to share the live stream link of this event on your social media pages. We will begin momentarily.
Just forget.
Just like with that Dennis. I got it right.
Dennis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin in 2 minutes. Please silence all phones and any media devices. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. And welcome to the 15th Annual U.S. Army Women's Foundation Scholarship Awards and Hall of Fame induction ceremony. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Clydelia Pritchard Allen, one of the board of directors for this outstanding organization, and I do have to make a public service announcement. I am not my twin sister, Colonel Clydea Pritchard Brown, so if some of you all were looking at me a little strange, I'm the other one. And I am excited to be your MC for today's ceremony. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I ask that you stand as I am honored to render the national anthem for this auspicious occasion. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, I ask you to direct your attention to the front screen.
The United States Army Women's Foundation. Throughout our nation's history, women have fearlessly volunteered and served in the United States Army. Some of their stories of courage and commitment are documented in the history of our nation, yet there are many more stories to be told. Recognizing this need, the United States Army Women's Foundation was created to ensure the history of the Women's Army Corps and the contributions of all Army women would be remembered and celebrated. Today, by connecting the past and empowering the future, the Army Women's Foundation serves as a catalyst for honoring the service of Army women. The foundation also brings together women veterans of all backgrounds to share their unique experiences and empowers them through our scholarships, Hall of Fame, and educational programs. The Army Women's Foundation stands with Army women past, present, and future to guarantee service women are honored, empowered, connected, and their stories told.
Wow, what an inspiring video that we had today. Now, we start that video off, and now we like to acknowledge and welcome some of our distinguished guests for today. We have the Honorable Kevin Olson, Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. The Honorable John Sparks, Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. The Honorable Gregory Maggs, Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for Armed Forces. The Honorable M. Tia Johnson, Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces and Colonel, U.S. Army retired. The Honorable Wendell Griffin, Circuit Judge retired, 6th Judicial Circuit of Arkansas, Division. I apologize. We have General Retired Johnny Wilson and his beautiful wife, Miss Wilson, U.S. Army retired. We have with us General Dennis Vi. Do I see his beautiful wife with him? Yes, and his beautiful wife with him. There they are over there. We have Lieutenant General Douglas Stitt, U.S. Army. And we have the following retired Army Lieutenant Generals: Lieutenant General Bruce Crawford, Flora Darpino, Richard Formica, Susan Lawrence, Patricia McQuiston, Robert Farrell, Roger Schultz, Kip Ward. And we have the Honorable Anita Dixon, Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army. We also have with us other general officers and flag officers in the audience, distinguished guests, friends, and family. Welcome to this ceremony today. Now, I wanted to take a brief moment to share just a little history about the Army Women's Foundation. The U.S. Army Women's Foundation was established in 1969, the year I was born, when a handful of strong and determined members of the Women's Army Corps, or the WACs, at Fort McClellan saw the need to preserve the history of Army women's service to our nation. They also wanted to remain connected to the Army that they loved so much. So they joined efforts with a commitment to have future generations remember the sacrifices women made alongside their male counterparts. Well, what better way to preserve their stories than to build a museum for women? Well, mission accomplished. And after a BRAC moved to Fort Lee in 2000, that museum, the Army Women's Museum, proudly stands today. As a result of these women and members of the Women's Army Corps, their unwavering efforts, the U.S. Army Women's Foundation continues to build upon their legacy each day. Today, the Army Women's Foundation recognizes and preserves the accomplishments and contributions Army women, past and present, through various ceremonies and programs. Now, annually, we host ceremonies such as today's Scholarship Awards and Hall of Fame ceremony, and hold leadership forums at the AUSA annual meetings in the fall. The Army Women's Foundation is made up of active duty, retired veterans, soldiers for life, and civilians, with a focus on how we can help our Army. Part of our mission states to promote public interest in the U.S. Army. Our mission complements the Army's efforts to recruit and retain the Army's best and brightest. We do it by telling our stories, by mentoring, leadership development, scholarships, Hall of Fame, speakers bureaus, buildings, and fostering connections to preserve our history and strengthen our future. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome an exceptional leader and the president of the Army Women's Foundation, Brigadier General Retired Ann McDonald.
Wow, what a beautiful rendition of the national anthem. I mean, there's talent all over there. Wow. So again, distinguished guests, friends, family, welcome to the National Museum of the United States Army, our museum. And if you haven't had a chance to tour it, unfortunately, it will be closed after we finish our ceremony, but come back here and see the exhibits and learn about our Army, because it is all here and it is beautiful. And welcome everyone to the 15th Annual Scholarship Awards and Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It's truly my honor to be today's host for the ceremony and to be amongst such tremendous leaders and friends and family members who have joined us from afar to be at this occasion. Throughout the years from the American Revolution forward, countless numbers of Army women have contributed greatly to American history, culture, and society. In fact, this June, we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Women's Armed Services Integration Act of 1948 that permanently incorporated women into the armed forces. And just for a little perspective, prior to this act, with the exception of nurses, women served in the military only during time of war. So this landmark legislation allowed women for the first time to serve as permanent, regular members of the United States military. Women's History Month is about honoring these accomplishments, and perhaps most importantly, educating future generations about the significant role, sacrifices, and successes women have had in the defense of our nation. And our program today does just that. We're excited about the announcement of 22 scholarships that will be awarded to Army women and/or their lineal descendants. We also are going to recognize and honor extraordinary individuals who will be inducted into our Hall of Fame or recognized with our Champions Awards. Now, speaking of Hall of Fame and Champions, I would like to acknowledge some of our amazing leaders already in the audience. So can we have all the current Hall of Fame members please stand to be recognized? Because I know you're out there. So if you're a current member, such great talent, trailblazers, pioneers, making a difference every day. Now, we could not do what we do, honor, empower, and connect, and sustain this foundation without the generous support from individual donors, sponsors, and partners. And to our sponsors up there, you have been such loyal, committed friends who believe in our mission, believe in and support the work we do, and we cannot thank you enough. We so much appreciate your commitment. Now, a little bit later on in the ceremony, we're going to individually meet our sponsors, but I just wanted to acknowledge them up front with that slide. Now, our partners. Now, we acknowledge that there are a lot of great organizations doing terrific work to support our Army soldiers, our families, and veteran population. And through strong partnerships and collaboration with these organizations, we're able to leverage our collective efforts and talents to reach an even greater population. Our partners include the Association of the United States Army, Reads Across America. I think there's a slide. No slide. Reads Across America. And today, our Reads Across America radio is with us and is broadcasting our program. We've got Jeff Pierce and Chaplain Colonel Karen Diefendorf with us. Of course, we partner with the Army Women's Museum, the Military Women's Memorial, and we are so excited about our newest partnership with the Female Mentoring and Morale Program, FMMP, which is an all-inclusive grassroots platform that provides leader development and mentorship with an emphasis on addressing issues that military and civilian women face in formations and government offices. Today is a great day, and there's much to celebrate as we present scholarships, as we recognize and honor our Hall of Fame, and as we get to hear from one of our Army premier leaders. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Lieutenant General Doug Stitt is a 1990 distinguished military graduate from Norwich University, and he has served in all AG positions in the Army, from personnel company commander to Director of Military Personnel Management, to now the G1 of the United States Army. His biography is in your program, but I want to say a few things that are not in the bio. He is described by our senior Army leadership as being one of the hardest workers in the Pentagon and one of the fastest walkers. In fact, rumor has it that he completely blew out a pair of low quarters from all the walking he did around the Pentagon. I understand, sir, that 10,000 steps a day is a quiet day? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present a 4-times combat veteran, a warrior, our preeminent personnel officer, the Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel, United States Army, Lieutenant General Douglas F. Stitt.
Well, with an introduction like that, a rendition of the national anthem like that, here I am left to bat cleanup. So I will not recite all of the distinguished visitors that are here. I do say to all of those judges that the docket must be light, and if my name was on it, I apologize in advance. But and I would like to ask for your indulgence up front if I selfishly asked it if I could deliver these remarks on behalf of my sister, Captain Jennifer McDonald, who served, and her husband served, and her service was rarely acknowledged. And she identified and as a veteran, but she was never really recognized for one. So I apologize up front, and my poor remarks are delivered on behalf of and honoring my sister, a women veteran. And I am just so honored and humbled to be in such a distinguished audience in our Army's museum. What a lovely venue, and to have the Army Women's Foundation host this event for each and every one of these truly deserving and remarkable awardees. This foundation, which predates our all-volunteer force, as we learned, sets the example as the premier organization for educational excellence, a national network, and empowering our women, both serving and veterans, and dedicated to their service, sacrifice, and commitment to our great nation. And I thank you all very much so. Thank you. A little bit of a story that I happened upon by a young woman veteran by the name of Deborah Sampson. Deborah Sampson, she's not young, I apologize, according to her biographer, served in our Army in the American Revolution. And she served under the auspice that no one knew her gender. And she was able to serve with no one knowing her gender for about 2 years. She was wounded in combat, and she did her own first aid, removed a bullet from her own leg, recovered, goes back out on the battlefield, and then she's fighting outside of Philadelphia, and she's felled by an illness, where when she is taken to a medical treatment facility at the time, it is discovered that she is a woman. However, she is honorably discharged from service in 1783 and returns to her home in Massachusetts, where she is married and has 3 children. Her biographer writes a book called The Female Review, or Memoirs of an American Lady, and she receives a pension from the state of Massachusetts and lives kind of a quiet life of a Massachusetts farmer raising her family, but she goes out on the early 19th century lecture circuit wearing her uniform and advocates for women's service in our military. I think it's probably the AG officer within me where I find this part interesting, that after her death, her husband petitions the United States government for her benefits. We don't have the Army Board of Corrections for Military Review. If we did, all of the judges are here today, so we can administer this case rather quickly, I think. And eventually, we had bureaucracy in the 19th century. Her husband is able to wear down the government and obtain the same stipend for Deborah Sampson that all of the male soldiers who fought in the Revolution received as well. So, building on that, coming forward, the contributions and achievement of our women have only continued to grow and make our Army stronger. As the role of women has evolved, Army organizations like this one, the U.S. Army Women's Foundation, have grown its network across our nation for today's Army women and for our veterans and for those future soldiers that are coming into the force tomorrow. The dedication to honor and empower Army women, past and present, is evident in the Legacy Scholarship Program, which has been supporting education from Army women and their children for over 14 years, awarding over $600,000 in scholarships. Today, the Army Women's Foundation will award the 2023 Legacy Scholarships to include the inaugural 6 888 scholarships, named in honor of the women who served in the 6 888 Central Postal Directory Battalion in World War II. I think even in the era of digital communication and instant gratification, there is nothing that boosts morale like a letter from home. And these ladies delivered and then some. President Biden signed the 6 888 Congressional Gold Medal into law on March 14, 2022, making the 6 888 the first and only military women's unit to receive our nation's highest civilian honor. Truly a trailblazing unit made of trailblazing women. Just to look around this room, to see the greatness that is here. The women trailblazers, the leaders who have empathy, courage, professionalism, commitment, candor, competence, all of the leadership attributes that we talk about, they are embodied by the women that are about to be inducted into the Hall of Fame today. And again, my apologies, as the Army G1 have to take us into some statistics and get into the data. Who are we really talking about here? And 19% of our force today is comprised of women who can now participate in 19 military occupations that were formerly closed to women. 1,019, the total number of women today who currently serve in those formerly closed occupations. 6, the number of great leaders that are going to be inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame this afternoon. For 227 years, our Army awaited to promote our first black woman as a colonel in the Judge Advocate General Corps. One of our inductees today, the Honorable Tia Johnson. Colonel Johnson also the first black woman to serve on the United States Court of Appeals for our armed forces. $10,000, the number of attorneys from the best law firm in the United States, the Army's Judge Advocate General Corps. Lieutenant General retired Flora Darpino was the first and highest ranking woman appointed as the Judge Advocate General of our Army since its establishment in 1775. And I will tell you, in a slight going off script here, that General Darpino, in the former Army service uniform, completed an outstanding standing broad jump in front of the Chief of Staff of the Army to demonstrate that women could successfully complete the occupational physical assessment test. So well done, ma'am. I appreciate it. 39 years of service for Lieutenant General retired Susan Lawrence. She served those 39 years as an enlisted soldier and as a commissioned officer, the first woman commanding of the 5th Signal Command and the first woman president of CEO of AFCEA, continuing to develop and empower our leaders today. Thank you, ma'am. Number 1, the first Service Academy graduate to be promoted to Brigadier General Brigadier General Becky Halstead. Wait, there's more. The first woman to command in combat at the strategic level and the Army's first woman Chief of Ordnance and Chief of the Ordnance School. I think seated next to her, the first black woman officer to be promoted to Brigadier General in the Signal Corps, and the second black female general officer in the Army, to Hazel Brown Johnson, Brigadier General Velma Von Richardson. Finally, number 9, the highest rank for any of our enlisted force, and that was held by Command Sergeant Major Deborah Strickland. She retired as the first Sergeant Major of IMCOM and the first woman to serve as the Command Sergeant Major for Installation Management Agency. Leaders all, and it goes without saying, Sergeant Major, that they had to have a good 42 to corral this group here, so well done. Thank you. Leaders all, these women are people of character, of dignity, and professionalism who led our soldiers to accomplish and be all they could be. I cannot thank them enough on behalf of our Army and a grateful nation for their courage, fortitude, and commitment to our Army and our nation. Thank you all.
We have a small token of our appreciation, well within the limits of. Thank you so much. I mean, I've got to tell you, I sat there because I wanted to continue to hear more. Those were such inspirational words, and let me tell you, you did your sister proud. And I'll tell you, if you're out there, I'm going to make sure you get a mug too.
Outstanding, sir. Thank you again. So the Army Women's Foundation invests in the future through our Legacy Scholarship Program. Our scholarships enable recipients to attain their educational goals and represent investment in the next generation of American leaders. Hosting today's Legacy Scholarship presentation is a trailblazer, a leader, and Army Women's Foundation board member. She served over 30 years as a military nurse and holds the distinction of commanding the Army Medical Activity and Reynolds Army Community Hospital at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, as one of the first non-physician brigade-level commanders. Please help me welcome the chair of the Scholarship Awards Committee, Colonel Alice L. O'Kay-Demarius.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Delia. And I have to say that General Adam Zender was the first to command, the first nurse to command, and I followed in her footsteps. So thank you, General Adam Zender. So good afternoon, and thanks very much for coming. This year we received 176 online scholarship applications, and our volunteer committee spent long hours reviewing the 37 complete applications, culling them, and then selecting the Legacy Scholarship recipients for 2023. As in previous years, the quality and the completeness of the applications remains of the highest quality, and this continues to be a labor of love for the committee. The worst part is telling somebody that they didn't get the scholarship, and it gets harder and harder every year. Most of the applicants are truly worthy, and we wish we could do more for them. The scholarships are awarded in 2 categories: Army women and the lineal descendants of Army women, that is, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The Army women and the lineal descendants are considered in 2 separate categories so they don't compete against each other. The scholarships are awarded to those eligible candidates pursuing certifications, degrees from community colleges, 4-year colleges, and universities, as well as graduate degrees. The applicants continue to come from a wide cross-section of the eligible population with very diverse backgrounds to include different majors, colleges, states, countries, and life stories. This is an indication that the Army Women's Foundation Legacy Scholarship Program continues to be far-reaching and inclusive. Since 2008, and including today's awardees, as General Stitt already pointed out, we've awarded 372 scholarships for over $650,000. And today, on behalf of the Army Women's Foundation Legacy Scholarship Program, are getting science and quantitative methods at Austin Peay State University at Clarksville, Tennessee. To share her story of how the Legacy Scholarship impacted her life, please give a warm welcome to Army combat veteran Rebecca Bender.
Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests. Oh, sorry. I didn't know it was a call and response thing. My bad. Distinguished guests, members of the Army Women's Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rebecca Bender, and I was selected as a 2022 Army Woman Graduate Student Recipient of the Legacy Scholarship. First off, I have to say thank you to the Army Women's Foundation. I obviously wouldn't have gotten the scholarship had they not existed, and I was incredibly surprised I hadn't heard about them until I discovered that the scholarship existed and I applied for it. But also, along with that, I have to thank all of you here, everyone who is listening, everyone who will see this on Facebook or YouTube or other platforms later. The work that the Army Women's Foundation does, not just with the Legacy Scholarship Program, but also their Hall of Fame program, would not be possible without all of your support, your individual donations, the support of the corporate partners such as Leidos, who sponsored my scholarship last year, as well as individual donors and charitable organizations across the country. So thank you all very much for your support. Please give yourselves a round of applause because the Army Women's Foundation couldn't do what they do without it. I stand before you today, an Army combat veteran, a data analyst. So General Stitter, I really appreciated your statistics and data from earlier. And I'm not quite a college graduate yet. That'll be December. We're getting there. I'm this close. But at my core, I will always just be a little redhead girl from cornfield, middle of nowhere, Ohio, or wheat or soybeans, depending upon what year it is. I had no idea what I was going to do in college whenever I graduated. I come from a very blue-collar, working-class family. My mom always jokes that she was worried my first words were going to be, "Daddy's laid off," because I was a child of the early 80s. So I didn't have a college fund waiting for me. I definitely was not athletically gifted or have, academic potential to be granted lots of scholarships to pay for college. And moreover, I didn't even know what I would go to college for anyway. So when the Army recruiter called me at the beginning of my senior year, I gave him the answer I'm sure every recruiter wants to hear when they ask, "What are your plans after high school?" I said, "I have no idea." So when he came over to the house and started going into all of the different branches in the Army, the different MOSs that I could do, nothing really kind of at that point sounded interesting and exciting until he got to the part where he said, "Or you can work in military intelligence, get a top secret clearance, and work for the FBI or the CIA when you get out." I'll refer you back to me being a little redhead girl from country middle of nowhere, Ohio. So whenever he said that, immediately in my head, I excitedly started dancing to the sounds of Secret Agent Man by Johnny Rivers and saying, "Where do I sign?" So I went in as what was then a 96 Bravo all-source intelligence analyst. I did about 5 years active duty. I deployed to Kosovo, and then I deployed to Iraq for OIF-3. But when I got out in 2006, I discovered, like many transitioning service members, that your job prospects are incredibly limited without a college degree. And so at that point, I ended up spending the better part of the next 12 years working retail. I wanted to get back into analytics, but again, I couldn't do that without a college degree. So in 2018, with the support and love and incredible patience of my husband, Brett, who truly, I have to say, has absolutely no equal in the world. I left my job as a retail manager to pursue a degree full-time. My GI Bill paid for my associates and most of my bachelor's, and his remaining GI Bill benefits covered the rest of my bachelor's degree. He had suggested that while I was already on that track and in that mindset of going to college, that going straight into grad school and getting a master's degree would probably be the best idea, just to get it out of the way right off the bat. So I applied to Austin Peay State University's Masters of Data Management and Analytics program. And when I was accepted, I immediately started looking for scholarship opportunities because I was tremendously worried about getting done and having a mountain of student debt. So that was when I discovered the Legacy Scholarship Program. I applied for the scholarship, and at no point did I think I was going to get selected. I may have red hair, and you'd think I have all the luck of the Irish. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. So you can imagine my surprise when a few weeks later I got a phone call from Beth saying that I had been selected as one of the recipients. Immediately when I hung up the phone, I began sobbing when I told my husband what had happened. The military does an incredible job of teaching us how to work in groups and work in teams, but it's also pretty good at instilling a very fierce independent streak and a very strong sense of self-reliance. And as a result, service members, veterans, were usually not that great at asking for help. Bonus points if it's financial, extra bonus points if you're asking complete strangers. So to be selected was incredibly humbling because to the women of the selection committee, I was nothing more than words on a page. But somewhere, they saw something, and they said, "We see you. We believe in what you're trying to accomplish and your goals, and we want to help you get there." And money for college is great, but that sentiment right there means more to me than anything else. To have their support, and not just with the scholarship, but in things I want to do later on, that you can't put a price on that. And to have been lucky enough to have been here last year and to hear all of the biographies and the stories of these incredible women who were inducted into the Hall of Fame, I very quickly lost count of how many times a sentence began with the words, "the first woman too." And I continue every single day to be humbled and inspired by all of you. And truly, I still have no idea how I'm standing in front of all of, in this room, breathing the same air. So again, thank you to the Army Women's Foundation for asking me to share my story today. Your continued support means the world to me, and I want to do everything I can to make you proud. Thank you.
Well, everything else I have to say pales after that. Thanks, Rebecca. And congratulations on everything you've done. And you might have been words on a paper, but you jumped out at us. And we are so thankful, so thankful. Okay. Because we award our scholarships to scholars from all over the world, most of the recipients are unable to attend our ceremony in person. But I assure you, they all greatly appreciate the opportunity to these scholarships provide them. Even if they can't be in here in person, we want to honor them. None of this would be possible without the continuing support of our stalwart sponsors. They make it happen year in and year out. This year, the Army Women's Foundation is pleased to welcome a new benefactor, the Windsor Group. The Windsor Group scholars for 2023 are Sophia Beebe, whose mom, Kristen, was an active duty behavioral health specialist. Sophia is a nursing student at Texas Tech University. And Lieutenant Catherine Boyd, a physical therapy student at the University of South Florida, as well as Amy Crum, a former member of the Army Reserve who is studying to be a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner at Eastern Kentucky University. The scholars are not able to be here today, but we are lucky to have Ms. Deirdre Windsor, an Army veteran, the president and CEO of the Windsor Group. Congratulations to Sophia, Catherine, and Amy, and to the Windsor Group, and we look forward to a long and fruitful relationship. We're happy to have Fluor as a continuing sponsor, and Fluor is represented here today by our very own Colonel Retired Janie Carson, who is part of the business development and Army logistic portion at Fluor. The recipients of the Fluor-sponsored scholarships are Staff Sergeant Amanda Gorf, who is a clinical psychology candidate at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Of note, Staff Sergeant Gore speaks Farsi and was deployed to Ukraine in 2020. So in her essay, she said that she had a very different view from most other people based on what's going on today. As well as Specialist Marissa Center, a political science and history major at the University of Southern Mississippi. Marissa is a member of the Army National Guard. The recipients are unable to be here today, as I'd mentioned, but Janie Carson from Fluor is here, and we'd like her to come forward to be recognized. Congratulations to Amanda and Marissa, and thanks again to Fluor for their continuing support. The Pritzker Military Museum and Library is another long-term supporter and is the sponsor for Emily Dawson, who is enrolled in the Transatlantic Master's Political Science program at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. This program requires an additional year of study in Barcelona, Spain. Emily's mom, Dina, served as a combat medic when she was on active duty. And Lieutenant Hannah Holden, a first-year student at Georgetown Law School. The recipients are not here today, and apparently Pritzker is here. All right, there you go. And we, it's all right. And they're not in their assigned seats, so. But we invite Ms. Karima Cruz, the program manager at Pritzker, and Ms. Susan Rifkin, the chief operating officer of the philanthropic activities at Pritzker Military Library and Museum. Congratulations to Emily and Hannah, and thanks to Pritzker for their constant support. The recipients of the Stantec sponsored Army Women's Foundation scholarships are Sergeant First Class retired Nathan McKee, who's at Liberty University, a PhD candidate in instructional design and technology. Nathan's mom, Phyllis, was a medical specialist on active duty and was also in the Virginia National Guard. And Sergeant Sumiyabanu Mautala, who is at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, a master's student in aviation maintenance and management. The recipients aren't able to be here today, and we're very thankful to Stantec for their confidence in the Army Women's Foundation. Our next long-term sponsor is GE Aerospace, and the scholar recipient for this sponsored scholarship is Lieutenant Stephanie Martino, who is studying to be a physical therapist at Rutgers University. Stephanie can't be here today because she's at school, but we welcome Colonel Retired Bill Morris, who is the Executive Director at GE Aerospace. I swear Ann knows everybody. Congratulations to Stephanie and thanks to GE Aerospace. Geico Military continues to be a sponsor for the scholarship program, and the 2023 Geico Military Scholar is Lynette Bonner, a former Transportation Corps officer, my brother's corps, majoring in special education at the University of St. Thomas. Lynette is unable to be here today, but we do welcome Command Sergeant Major retired Ed Sizer from Geico Military Affairs Team. I really want to know how they do the gecko. You know, the fingers, it's just, but thank you, Geico Military, and congratulations to Lynette. PenFed also continues their sponsorship of the Army Women's Foundation and the Legacy Scholarship Program, and the recipient of the PenFed-sponsored scholarship is Sergeant Lakeisha Hanna, retired, a master's candidate in criminology and criminal justice at the University of Alabama. Lakeisha is unable to be here today, but we are pleased to have Ms. Rebecca Edmondson, a program manager from PenFed, to come forward and be recognized. It's particularly noteworthy that Rebecca is here with us today. Rebecca is an Army veteran who had 4 tours in Afghanistan in 10 years. Figure that out, 4 years. And she was a 2021 Legacy Scholarship recipient in the graduate degree program. Thank you to PenFed and congratulations to Lakeisha. Each year, the Army Women's Foundation presents scholarships in honor of 2 women who have had a huge impact on the role of women in the Army. Colonel Ovetta Culp Hobie, the first director of the Women's Army Corps, and Ms. Dita Hopkins Kinney, the first superintendent of the Army Nurse Corps. As in the past, the Army Women's Foundation Board of Directors and Advisors is proud to sponsor the Hobie and Kinney scholarships. The Hobie Scholarship is awarded to Sergeant Katrina Taylor, a member of the Army Reserve who is a nursing student at Cox College, and the recipient of the Dita Hopkins Kinney Scholarship is Caden DeVal, a nursing student at James Madison University. Caden's mom, Judy, retired from the Army after having served as a veterinary corps officer. Congratulations to Katrina and Caden, and thank you to the Army Women's Foundation Board of Directors and Advisors. In addition to these named scholarships, the Legacy Scholarship Program awards the following grants to Catherine Baca, a West Point graduate and veteran who is pursuing a master's degree in special education curriculum development at Georgia Southern University. Hannah Best, a community college student at Harrisburg Area Community College with a major in early childhood education. Hannah's mom, Deanna, was a software analyst in the Signal Corps. PFC Salamatu Dumbaya, a member of the United States Army Reserve who is pursuing a bachelor's degree in exercise science at Westchester University. Shannon Sullivan, a great Irish name, especially in the month of March, a previous Legacy Scholar, is a dual master's candidate in social work and public health at the University of Texas in Austin. Shannon's mom, Cynthia, was a medical service corps officer in the Army Reserves. Hannah Townley, who is studying psychology and human services at Grandview University. Hannah's mom, Janet, and her dad were both in the Army Reserve, and now so is her brother. And finally, Specialist Jana Vaiskolik, a PhD candidate at the University of South Florida, studying integrative biology. She's a member of the Army National Guard. Congratulations to all of these scholars. This year's recipient of the M.M. Costello Scholarship is Specialist Anna Vu of the Army Reserve. At the age of 16, Specialist Vu immigrated to the United States by herself from Vietnam, and to use her own words, with only 2 very large suitcases. Anna is now a first-year medical student at the University of Minnesota. This award is the result of a sizable donation made to the Army Women's Foundation Legacy Scholarship Program by John and Gail Howell, who have been staunch and longtime supporters of the foundation. The Howells instituted the M.M. Costello Scholarship to honor John's early mentor while he was assigned as an Army Nurse Corps officer at Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Ms. Costello was a dedicated Department of Army civilian nurse. They taught me a lot, trust me. And who, in John's words, taught him everything he needed to know to properly care for his patients. The Howells established this scholarship to support students pursuing healthcare careers. The Howells and the foundations are excited that this ongoing award will continue to support the Legacy Scholarship Program in coming years. Congratulations and to Specialist Vu, and thanks to John and Gail Howell. We are very pleased to introduce Ms. Gail Howell, and I would like Gail to come forward to be recognized for the support that she and John provide to the Army Women's Foundation and the individual students they sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it's my privilege to announce our newest scholarship, and General Stitt already took my thunder, the 688 Scholarship. Of course, he's a 3-star, so he can do that. The 688 Scholarship, created and dedicated in honor and recognition of the service of the 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion. This battalion, nicknamed the 688, was considered to be an all-black women Army Corps battalion comprised of 855 women who deployed during World War II. We have since learned that women from Puerto Rico, Mexico, and the Caribbean were also assigned to the 688. Their mission was the unenviable but crucial task of sorting and routing millions of pieces of unprocessed mail the Army couldn't get to the troops on the front line. Despite the Army's and society's restrictions due to their gender and race, the 688 excelled under the most difficult circumstances and solved the Army's morale and mail crisis. On March 14, 2022, the 688 received the highest award of the nation, the Congressional Gold Medal, for their pioneering service, devotion to duty, and contributions to increase the morale of all U.S. Army personnel. The 688's service imparts lessons that are timeless, genderless, and boundless. This annual scholarship will help to ensure the service and memory of the 688 members that will never be forgotten. Through the efforts of 3 members of the Army Women's Foundation Hall of Fame, the 688 Scholarship has been initiated and funded through individual donations expressly specified for this scholarship. We are lucky to have with us here today the 3 founders of the scholarship: Brigadier General Adam Zender, Colonel Edna Cummings, and Master Sergeant Liz Helm Fraser, and I'd invite them to come forward to the stage here. I just wanted to point out that General Adam Zender is the oldest living African-American female general officer in the United States. And the Army Women's Foundation and the Army Nurse Corps appreciates her contributions as a leader and mentor. And General Adam Zender was my second chief nurse when I was on active duty, and I survived. Of course, General Adam Zender didn't have gray hair till she met me. The inaugural 688 Scholarship is awarded to retired Chief Warrant Officer 4 Nicole Burkett, a doctoral student majoring in educational leadership. Chief Burkett is a student majoring in educational leadership at Tarleton State University in Texas. Oh. Okay. Chief?
Okay, so I bring you greetings from my university. Howdy, Tarleton State University. Roger that, ahua from the military, and hey y'all from Texas. Distinguished guests, family, friends, and colleagues, I can tell you that I would never thought in a million years I would be standing in this space today in front of you, a space created by warriors and giants that have gone before me. I stand here today on the shoulders of all who have sacrificed and improvement for better lives, better opportunities, and better futures for those that come behind them. It takes a village to support each other. I am a combat Black woman veteran that served over 20 years for my country. I am a wife of my husband of 25 years. Thanks, babe, for supporting me in all my endeavors and ideas. Thanks also for refocusing me when my ideas were not realistic or tangible. Teamwork makes the dream work, ladies and gentlemen. Teamwork makes the dream work. I am a mother, and thanks to my son that he understands my assignment. I want to say how much I love my family and friends and how much I appreciate their support. I am a doctoral student in the second year of a 3-year program in educational leadership. My dissertation focused on the transition of combat Black women veterans deployed to Iraq and/or Afghanistan. I got you. And investigates the impact of combat on their lives beyond the military. It would target a population of Black women separated from the military within the last 6 years and living in the North Texas area. It is a phenomenological study. Hey, say that again one more time. Phenomenological study that will highlight their stories and their voices. And it discusses the trajectory of Black women in the military, from the humble beginnings of enslaved people working for the military to the executive leaders. From the humble of slaves working for the military to executive leaders working in the military, excuse me. I found the revolution of Black women fascinating because they have a rich tapestry of pain, love, and determination. I highlight the accomplishments of the 6AAA organization in my study, and it was because of them, that battalion, that invincible group of Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican women, members of the Women's Army Corps, who chose to serve our country in the time of war, that I am here. I'm incredibly grateful for the service and legacy of combat Black women veterans of the 6AAA, and I'm also incredibly grateful to receive this award in their honor. With this scholarship, I'm able to continue my study, which aims to help leaders and scholars understand the challenges experienced by this vulnerable, underrepresented population in the research. OEF and OIF have the most significant amount of veterans reintegrating into the civilian space. This study stands on the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I would ask you to consider being situationally aware of those challenges regarding social, professional, educational, and interaction with not only this population, but all populations. I would also ask you to consider strengthening your cultural competence to better versions of yourselves to encourage others. I would like to end on this point. As I was finding my research voice, it really called out to me. So let me tell you a story, right? Let me tell you a story about a man born in 1872. He went to school with the Wright brothers, and they would eventually publish his work. He worked at the Library of Congress and met Frederick Douglass. He lived a short life and died in 1906 from tuberculosis. In 1895, he wrote a poem that changed my life. His artistic legacy was a flame that ignited the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, 1930s, and still today, right? I stand with my sisters. Thank you, guys. All right, so the poem is called We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our teeth and shades our eyes. This debt we owe to human jowl with torn and bleeding hearts. We smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, only let them see us while. We wear the mask. We smile. But, oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but, oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. Okay, so again, thank you to the U.S. Foundation for the scholarship, the women of the 688, and I'm devoted to my studies, and you can count on me to give my best. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Congratulations, Chief. You know, it's amazing when you read these applications, it's just amazing. And then you get to meet people like Rebecca and Chief Burkett. It's just, it makes it all worthwhile. We have a special, an unexpected surprise today. With us today, we have two daughters of two of the women who served in the 68th, 88th Battalion, and we're very pleased. I'd like to introduce them. One is Miss Patricia Heldorn, whose mom Patricia's mom was Dolores Rudock. She's from D.C., and her picture, actually, there's a little display in the back there, and Dolores' picture is on that. I'm wrecking things here. And the other individual is Miss Janice Martin. And Janice's mom, Miss Indiana Hunt Martin, was a member of the battalion, and recently President Biden signed legislation that will name a post office in Buffalo, New York for Miss Indiana. Oh. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Karen, there you go. Well, it's great. A bonus. And one other thing, the Smithsonian's website will notice that the 6888, a movie is being made about them by Tyler Perry, and it's going to star not only Oprah Winfrey, but Kerry Washington, so watch for that. So thank you to General Adam Zender, Colonel Cummings, and Master Sergeant Helen Frazier, and congratulations to Chief Burkett, and thank you to the ladies. All right. Okay, we're getting down there. In 2018, the Army Women's Foundation and Trident University International formed a partnership to provide full undergraduate and graduate scholarships to Army women students. To date, 6 scholars have been awarded these scholarships, and last year, the Foundation and Trident renewed this collaboration for the next 4 years. With this renewal, Trident generously increased its donation from 2 scholarships a year to 6 full-ride scholarships to be awarded each year to Army women students in undergraduate and graduate studies. The latest recipient of the Trident Scholarship is Journey Holland, a former Army medic who is a master's candidate in human resources management at Trident. Journey can't be with us today, and we don't have a representative from Trident, but we'd like to say thank you to them. And with an increase in the number of scholarships offered by Trident, we expect many more applications in the coming years, and the window for applications for this year will open in the next few weeks. So stay tuned, spread the word. It's out there. It's a great opportunity. We wish we were able to tell the stories in detail of all the recipients, but due to time constraints, we can't. Please know that all the recipients are truly worthy, and we wish we could give more money to them, to the other deserving applicants. The Army Women's Foundation Scholarship Program would not be possible without the continuing support of all of our fabulous sponsors. We can't say thank you to them too many times. There are several other sponsors in the audience that I'd like to recognize, so please stand when I call your name. Representing the Army Nurse Corps is its president, Colonel Retired Karen Gaussman, and former president, Colonel Retired Roy Harris. From Caliber Systems, Lieutenant General Richard Formica, and who's a vice president, and Ms. Erin Moody, who is from Human Resources. So thank you again to Anka Caliber, as well as Lockheed Martin and Thundercat Technology for their continuing support. All right. The Army Women's Foundation Board of Directors is the backbone of this scholarship effort. Without their confidence in the scholarship committee and their continuing support, a day like today would never happen. Additionally, we'd like to acknowledge the work of Ms. Beth Spitzley, the Director of Administration for the Foundation, and Ms. Jessica DeFata, back there. The administrative assistant for the foundation. Beth and Jessica put all this together so that the committee can review the applications and make the selections. And then they make all the coordination with all the sponsors and all the recipients, as well as a myriad of other duties that they work on to make this happen. Without their outstanding support, we wouldn't be here today. Thanks to Beth and to Jessica. Okay, the Legacy Scholarship Committee appreciates all the assistance that goes into making these scholarships possible. I'd like to personally thank my colleagues on the committee for all their work. These dedicated volunteers take their responsibility very seriously. When you're spending somebody else's money, it's a burden, trust me, but we do it willingly. We spend countless hours reviewing the applications to make sure that the best candidates, like the Chief and Rebecca, are selected. Some of the committee members are here today, and I'd like them to stand. Colonel Retired Janie Carson, and Miss Patricia Gronkowitz. There she is in the back. And then Lieutenant Colonel Mary Spring and Miss April Booth, they couldn't be with us today, but they work hard at this. So thank you again for your unwavering support and commitments to this work, and thanks again for attending today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alice. And congratulations to all of our scholarship awardees. Please give them one more round of applause. Now it is time to induct some amazing leaders into our Hall of Fame. Now, the Army Women's Foundation honors and celebrates the service and incredible legacy of women who have donned the cloth of our nation through our Hall of Fame. And it honors individuals through our Champion Awards. Our inductees' biographies all have a common thread that ties them together: their noteworthy service and contributions. They broke ground, they opened doors, and made the choice of a military career easier for those women who followed. To help with the inductions, I'm also going to ask our Army Women's Foundation President, Brigadier General Ann McDonald, to lend a hand as we present these inductees with their service. Thank you, ma'am, as you come forward. Now, our first inductee this afternoon is the Honorable M. Tia Johnson, Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. The Honorable Tia Johnson is a trailblazer, a role model, achieving many firsts during her 30-year career in the Army. Oh my goodness. To include being the first African-American woman to be promoted to the rank of colonel in the 227-year history of the United States Army Judge Advocate General's Corps, shattering a ceiling for all. Thank you, ma'am, for shattering that ceiling. An international national security law specialist, Colonel Retired Johnson served in a variety of judge advocate positions, commensurate with her rank in both CONUS and OCONUS, including 5 joint and combined tours. Throughout her career, she deployed in support of a range of missions, to include humanitarian assistance in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, peacekeeping in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and combat support in Iraq. Additionally, she was the first woman to serve as Chief Operational Law to an Army Corps, advising war planners and war fighters, and the first African American woman to chair an academic department at the United States Army Judge Advocate General School. Still going. Immediately after retirement from the Army, Colonel Johnson served as the Assistant Secretary for Legislative Affairs, U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And since 2017, she's been a professor at Georgetown University Law Center, teaching in the areas of constitutional law and governance, and national security law. On January 3rd, 2023, the Honorable M. Tia Johnson was sworn in as a judge for the military's top court. And that court is the United States Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. The military court consists of 5 civilian judges, each appointed to 15-year terms. The Honorable Johnson is the first Black woman to serve on that court. For her extraordinary service, forging new paths for women and men, leading from the front in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, and continuing to serve our nation as a judge of the United States Courts of Appeals for the Armed Forces, the Honorable M. Tia Johnson, Colonel, U.S. Army Retired, is inducted into the U.S. Army Women's Foundation 2023 Hall of Fame. Ma'am, please rise. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Johnson.
For those in the back who can't hear, one of my schoolmates, Anita Dixon, who's the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, is sitting in the front row saying, tell them what school you went to, tell them what school you went to. I went to Hampton. At the time I graduated, it was still the Institute, so I went to Hampton Institute. And I know that some of my Hampton classmates are out here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the National Museum of the Army for providing this beautiful venue for us for this event to be held. Thank you so much, General McDonald and the Army Women's Foundation for recognizing me. Those who know me well know that I don't do really well with a bunch of attention being shown on me. So I am deeply honored to have been chosen for induction into the Army Women's Hall of Fame. More than anyone, I know that I did not get here on my own. I was guided and mentored while on active duty, and some of those who are sitting here were mentors to me that I looked up to, and so I'm so happy to see them. I also benefited from having sisters in arms who were there to support, console, sometimes cajole. Where are you, Brenda Andrews? Sometimes cajole, but most importantly, to laugh and have fun with. They made the 30 years so much richer. But before all of that, I had my family who supported me in everything that I did, and including the decision to go into the Army. My 95-year-old mother is out here, and thank you, Mom. And last but certainly not least, I have to thank my husband for his unwavering love and support. He was also in the military, retiring after 20 years, but because he's older than I am, he got to continue his sacrifice for almost another 20 years after he retired. As I noted at my confirmation hearing, I got deployed 2 months after being married, and I was gone for 18 months. That's a heck of a way to start a marriage, but we prevailed. Thank you, honey. I appreciate it so much. I could not have achieved all this without you. To be inducted is honor enough, but for this to occur this year, as General McDonald noted, the 75th anniversary of actually two landmark events. In June of 1948, President Truman signed into law the Women's Armed Services Integration Act, which, as General McDonald noted, authorized women to serve in the United States forces in a number of capacities outside of wartime. So that was hugely significant. But General Truman didn't end then. 1 month later, in July 1948, he signed the executive order ordering the desegregation of the armed forces. You can clap for that. You got to clap for that. Both of these events are significant because without them, or something similar to them, I would not be here. I would not have been able to serve on active duty for 30 years. And so I never forget those who came before. I never forget those who paved the way for me to be able to be here. I didn't get this on my own. I got this standing on the shoulders of those who came before. And so one of the things that always animated and motivated me while I was on active duty, that I never wanted to waste their sacrifice. And ma'am, this reminds me that I did not do that. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
Our next inductee is Lieutenant General Flora D. Darpino, U.S. Army retired. Lieutenant General Flora Darpino is a visionary leader, trailblazer, and combat veteran who broke numerous gender barriers throughout her Army career. She received a direct commission into the Judge Advocate General's Corps. During her three-decade career in the U.S. military, Flora Darpino achieved multiple historic milestones. Recognized for her knowledge and leadership, she served as the Staff Judge Advocate, United States Forces, Iraq, in Baghdad. Loving the pictures, I know you all are laughing. Where she was the senior military attorney in country. working with and advising both the military and State Department. Later, she was the commander at the Judge Advocate General's Legal Center and School, Charlottesville, Virginia, commander of the United States Army Legal Service Agency, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, then the Chief Judge, United States Army Court of Criminal Appeals. All of her outstanding work led to the selection in September 2013. Lieutenant General Darpino became the first woman to serve as the Judge Advocate General since establishment of the Army in 1775, the very first one. Now, as the Judge Advocate General of the U.S. Army, Lieutenant General Darpino served as the military legal advisor to the Secretary of the Army and principal legal advisor on matters of military justice. She directed over 10,000 lawyers in the JAG Corps at over 100 active and reserve Army legal offices across the United States Army and overseas. By her example, she's shown young women how rewarding military service can be and how it indeed is possible to balance a challenging career as a military lawyer and her family responsibilities as a wife and a mother. As a lifelong ambassador of the Judge Advocate General's Corps, her legacy lives on in the people she led and inspired. For her visionary leadership, sage counsel, and extraordinary service as the first woman Judge Advocate General of the Army and paving the way for others to follow, Lieutenant General Flora D. Darpino is inducted into the U.S. Army Women's Foundation 2023 Hall of Fame. Ma'am, can you take this?
Okay, here's a shocker for you. As a lawyer, I hate public speaking. All right? What I prefer to do is be the quiet voice in the back of the room that looks at the person when they're saying something stupid and kind of go. I assigned my husband the duty of being the person in the back of the room that tells me, okay, a fellow JAG officer. I want to thank General, the G1 for being here. Doug did serve with me when I was the TJAG, and he made his sister proud even there. As we dealt with issues on the Army staff having to do with the integration of women and other issues regarding equality, he was always the voice in the room that made sure that people understood what was at stake. So you made your sister proud then too, and I'm sure you still do. I also want to thank General McDonald and the Army, U.S. Army Women's Foundation for selecting me for this honor. But the biggest honor is to be in the front row with those folks. Judge Johnson and I served together over the years. She was always a little bit of a sounding board here and there, and hopefully I played the same role for you when you needed as a sister in arms. I was welcomed on the Army staff by General Lawrence. In fact, I mentioned earlier, she gave me the board she was wearing as she left the Army staff and asked me to carry on the legacy. And I hope that I did, ma'am. And then the other wonderful women that are in the front row. It's an honor to be selected, but it's an honor to be selected with you. I also thank all of you for being here today, the luminaries and everyone else. But I think we all know, as I think Judge Johnson tried to, say, and did so eloquently, that we are part of a team of teams. I mean, that's what the Army is. And this is a group supporting women even now. We saw all of those women there. but they're still supporting the Army. And that's what I had throughout my time in the Army. I had folks supporting me. And so I want to say thank you to the leaders that I served, who pushed me throughout my time to be the very best lawyer and soldier that I could be. I want to thank my peers, and I want to thank the people that I had the privilege to lead for lifting me up and making sure that together as a team, we were able to accomplish that mission. Because no accomplishment when you're wearing a uniform is individual. It is always a team accomplishment. And lastly, I want to thank my family, my parents, my husband, who I met in college and then drug me into the Army with him because he was an ROTC scholarship student. Best choice I made in my life, marrying my husband, because all good things came from that. My life, my military career, and my 2 daughters. And together, my husband, my parents, and my daughters guided me in my 30 years when I got off track. And they guided me back to the path where I should be going. And they gave me the strength when I was ready to give up. Because there were times I wanted to give up. And so I thank all of those, the leaders, those I served with, those I had the honor of serving, and my support network, my family, for this honor. Because when you're on a team, it's never an individual honor. The Army helped me be all that I could be. Thank you.
Ma'am, that was a good plug for the new Army motto. Good job. Our next inductee is Lieutenant General Susan S. Lawrence, U.S. Army retired. Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence is a distinguished Army leader, a mentor, and role model who broke multiple gender barriers throughout her almost 40-year career. Enlisting in the Women's Army Corps on 25 September 1972, she is the second longest serving member of the Women's Army Corps, beginning as a private, serving as a stenographer to sergeant, jumping out of airplanes, to serving as the Army's top and highest ranking signal officer, and first woman, CIO, and G6. Her service to the nation has been nothing short of extraordinary. Due to her recognized talents, leadership, and professionalism, Lieutenant General Lawrence achieved many firsts during her distinguished career, to include being the first female commanding general, 5th Signal Command, and the United States Army Europe and 7th Army Chief Information Officer, Assistant Chief of Staff, G6 at CIO. That's a long title, ma'am. Take a breath in there. This opened a path for another milestone where General Lawrence expertly managed the Defense Enterprise Systems, IT infrastructure, command and control, solutions, and advanced technology as the top and highest ranking signal officer, Chief Information Officer G6 of the United States Army. Her legacy also includes leading the development of the U.S. Army Cyber Command. In January 2022, Lieutenant General Lawrence was selected to be the first female president and CEO of AFCEA International, which is the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association International. Did I do that all? Good job. Okay. In the association's 75-year history, where she continues to serve the military and veteran community as a leader and role model. For her extraordinary 40-year career as both an enlisted soldier and officer, being a role model, serving as the Army's first woman to hold the top position in the signal field, And continuing to serve the military and veteran community, Lieutenant General Susan S. Lawrence is inducted into the U.S. Army Women's Foundation 2023 Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much for that beautiful rendition and all that you're still doing for us. We appreciate it. Wow, this is such an honor, and I wasn't really thinking about it a lot until I started hearing these stories and seeing great friends again that I served with. So thank you so much. As you said, it's great being on this team. Really appreciate it. So about 10 months before I retired, I was being interviewed by a reporter from a defense magazine on all things network and cybersecurity and architectures and the normal. And at the end, she looked around my room and she said, "Did you ever imagine one day you would be the CIO of the United States Army?" And in a nanosecond, I said, "It's unimaginable." Unimaginable that this 18-year-old came out of Ivy Grove, Iowa. I love the Ohio story because I understand it. As a stenographer, would one day become the CIO. And so to the Army's Women's Foundation, General McDonald, you were always special in my life. You were always there, and you had great service as well, and thank you for your continued leadership as you're driving on. But receiving this honor gives me a chance to think about how grateful I am for the experience to become the first in many opportunities. And as was said, you know, the first CEO and president of AFCEA International, I had a gentleman that came back to me on LinkedIn and he said, "Won't it be great when one day we don't have to say the first?" And with that, we've stood up a new office and are working on IDEA, inclusion, diversity, equality, and access. Very hard across our chapters, and that's what, and we just think it's so important. And as I think back, you know, as was said, you don't get here alone. And I think about all those people that had influences on me, my friends, my colleagues, my bosses especially, who saw something more in me than I saw in myself. Like my boss that you saw him commissioning me, said, "You need to be an officer one day." I loved being a non-commissioned officer. And I said, "No, I'm going to be the first woman Sergeant Major of the Army." And thankfully, he was wiser than me and pushed me towards college to get my commission. And I remember when he told me that I had to go to airborne school because he wasn't going to have a leg work for him at Fort Bragg. And I said, "Oh, sir, I'm scared of heights. I haven't lost anything up there. I am not doing this." And 5 weeks later, he pinned my wings on my chest. So getting out of your comfort zone, searching for other things to do, and building that team around you is why I was able to do what I was able to do from an 18-year-old private and it was 40 years. It was like 39 years and 8 months and 10 days. But it was such a blessing. Every assignment, every tour, the friends that I still have today just means so much to me. And so what I would say is to all of us, the young ones in this room, make sure to be that person that reaches out to someone who doesn't see their full potential and bring them along, because that's the most important thing you can do for our future generation. And to our scholarship winner in chief, you know, you just are examples of that, so thank you very much. And I want to close by giving a special shout out to my AFCEA International family that's here. Thank you so much. I had, after 40 years in the Army and 9 years with industry, I retired to Florida. But they convinced me I was too young to retire and I needed to come back. and be part of this organization. And I am grateful every day that I made the choice to come back, because being able to make a difference in people's lives is what's really, really awesome about AFCEA, and how we bring together the different parties between industry, the government, military, academia. It just is amazing to watch us take on and solve some really complex problems for our nation. So thank you, team, for everything you do for me. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Our next inductee is Brigadier General Rebecca Becky S. Halstead, U.S. Army retired. Brigadier General Becky Halstead is a trailblazer and role model as well, who has achieved many firsts during her 27-year career in the Army. Becky is a 1981 graduate of the United States Military Academy and achieved an historic milestone as the first female graduate of West Point to be promoted to general officer. Wow. Outstanding. In 2004, she became the first woman, the first woman in U.S. history to command in combat at the strategic level when she was promoted to Senior Commanding General for Logistics in Iraq. In this role, she was responsible for leading over 200 multidisciplinary units located across 55 different bases, providing supply, maintenance, transportation, and distribution services support to over 250,000 personnel serving in Iraq. She is also the first woman to serve as the Chief of Ordnance and Commandant of the U.S. Army Ordnance School. Becky worked as a member of the Congressionally Chartered Military Leadership Diversity Commission in 2009, examining the policies that provide opportunities for promotion and advancement of minority members of the armed forces. She is a primary faculty member and keynote speaker with Thayer Leadership at West Point, a premier executive leader development institute. However, more important than her firsts were the ways in which she led and continues to lead. She is an inspirational speaker, a caring leader, and an author of 24/7. The first person you must lead is you. For her extraordinary 30-year career as a trailblazer, motivational leader, consummate professional, and role model for male or female, Brigadier General Rebecca Becky S. Halstead is inducted into the U.S. Army Women's Foundation 2023 Hall of Fame.
Don't sit down. I want you to see my remarks. Okay. You did that beautifully, by the way. Thank you so much. Beautifully. So, well, good afternoon. I'm not any taller than when I started. I look at those pictures and I said to Susan, we were soldiers once and young, right? Ann, and I'm going to call you Ann not out of any disrespect, but really out of ultimate respect. Ann was in the class of 80, and I know there are women here from the class of 80, 1980 from West Point. And, you know, I got to follow you, I got to serve with you, I got to be your colleague throughout the Army. I feel like I grew up with you. And so the best part, though, is being friends. And I think the best part of today has been the joy of hugging so many people. Many I didn't even know were going to be here. Thank you, sir, General Wilson. I should have known. You support everything. And you've touched a lot of lives in that front row. So I'm smart enough to know it wasn't just for me, okay? But that man is just an amazing leader who also helped and reached down to people like me, men and women, right? But anyhow, Annie, thank you. And thank you for your leadership and your service and what you're doing here today, and for the whole Women's Foundation, because that's a host of volunteers that, it's just such hard work. And I've never done the GoFundMe for a not-for-profit, but I'm going to do it. And I think also, if they're not part of your marketing crew, those two young ladies that spoke, I'm already calling her Dr. Nicole and Rebecca. I guess I could remember your name easy. But how fun is that's what's so important about what we're doing here today. And to my good friend Carmen Powell, retired Army, who was so kind to drive us in DC traffic and bring us here. She looked at me and she says, today is about you. And I knew something else was coming. I said, yeah, but she goes, but it's about history. And it really is. None of us stand alone. None of us stand alone. So it is an honor, and it is extremely humbling. I'm grateful to God because he's the one that created the journey. I'm not always grateful, but I do realize that he was the masterpiece of all that. I'm grateful for all the women that have gone before us. But, I'm also grateful for all the men who led me. I was in the Army for 27 years, and I had many, many different bosses, all of which were men. And I didn't turn out too badly, right? So I cannot name them all. They know who they are. Some of them are watching with streaming. But when you told the story about the boards, your shoulder boards, when I found out I was going to make general, it was General Hill that I worked for. He was a combatant commander for Southern Command. He, I think, was more excited than me. And he found out the day that we had a social at his house, and he had run upstairs and he called the aide and myself into his living room with his wife, Tony. And I thought for sure we were in trouble, just because why were we being called into the living room? Everybody was gone. And so he put his hand out and he shook my hand, and the threads were still on one of his 4 stars that he ripped off of his mess. And those threads are still on there. I then gave them to my mother and father. Shout out to them. They're also watching versus streaming. And then General Ann Dunwoody, I never got to work for her. But when I became a general, she walked down the aisle at Capstone. She plunked her big old briefcase up on my desk. I'm always thinking I'm in trouble. That's the first thing I go to. For good reason, for my friends who know me. But so she plunked her briefcase down on the desk, and she pulled out her 1-star boards and gave them to me, and I wore them. And it took many years before I could give those away to someone else. And to the young lady that I gave, she was a company commander for me, Martine Kidd. She's a general at Fort Lewis, Washington. And I said, you have only 2 options. One, give them on to somebody else, or give them to the museum. Because those were Ann Dunwoody's, the first ever, right? Okay. I'm also grateful to my family. I wouldn't be here without my family. You want to talk about people who are able to deliver a kick in the butt and a pat in the back, and they know when to do it. That's definitely my family. To my parents who are still living, wonderful role models, and just supported me the whole way. But family really becomes your friends too, right? We choose them to be into our family. I have 2 of my grade school friends here. I can't tell you how many years we've been friends, because then you figure all that out. They came down from upstate New York. They've been to so many things as well, and we've known each other since 3rd grade. So I am just a country girl from a town with no traffic lights. We got a lot in common in this. And I would have never guessed that an opportunity like this would present itself. I had no vision of going into the military. My dad was an IBMer, my mother a dental hygienist. And so all I knew about the military was what I saw in my church from our young men that were in Vietnam, and remember watching all that on the news. But I wanted to play sports because, gosh darn it, I was an athlete. When you come from a town with no traffic lights, you do think you're an athlete, because every team you try out for, you make. And then my mother in my junior year, she reads the newspaper and she says, "This sounds just like you." And I looked around and there's no other you in the room but me. My sisters were there, my brother wasn't there. She goes, "The president, he's letting women go into the military academies. This sounds just like you." And I thought, what part of going to be a coach and a physical education teacher and living in the gym did you not understand? But she was right. She was spot on. And so when I went off to West Point, it was just, it was hard, My parents taught us 2 rules to life. Rule number 1, don't quit. Rule number 2, refer back to rule number 1. And so that's how I survived my military career. But I was confident. I knew that if I was able to graduate and make it through, that I was going to do 5 years. Not 5 years in one day, 5 years. But you know what happened? I fell in love with the people. Yes, I loved being a logistician. I loved the mission. But I just fell in love with the people. And they helped me find my passion. Or you so eloquently say, the Army helped me be all I could be. But I just love my soldiers and their families. And they taught me so much, and they gave me the passion and purpose with which, I live my life. And of course, going into combat, as you all know, we're willing to die for each other. But what I remind my soldiers all the time is we're willing to live for each other. And that's really important. And so even in this aspect as veterans. So it is a joy. And it's a joy to succeed, but it is far greater joy to watch them succeed. And so, and to watch them grow up and do great things. So you have kind of put a little burden on us, Ann, that if we have not been doing a good job of recognizing others, this is a very humbling experience. And Maureen LaBeouf, retired Brigadier General, she's here. Blame her if you don't think I should be here. She's the one that wrote the nomination. And when she asked me about it, I really didn't want to say yes. But I recognize in saying yes and getting this is that we owe that to all these other women and their stories, because it's such a diversity of stories. So it is an honor and a humble reminder to celebrate, and I'm going to try to do a better job of doing that. So to help you all out. So may God bless all of our military men and women, and may God bless our Army. I miss the smell of diesel, the sound of generators, that black coffee in the dining facility. But God bless our Army, and God bless our nation. Thank you very much.
Outstanding. Our next inductee is Brigadier General Velma Von L. Richardson, U.S. Army retired. Brigadier General Von Richardson is a trailblazer, leader, and a mentor. Recognizing the unique leadership opportunities she earned, she made her mission to always be available to mentor and coach others. Throughout her Army career, she inspired her military and civilian teammates to make excellence their standard, to not be afraid to take measured risks, and always take the hard right versus the easy wrong. She is one of a few African American women to have earned the rank of Brigadier General on active duty in the United States Army, the first black female officer to obtain the rank of Brigadier General in the Army Signal Corps, and was the senior African American woman in the active Army at her retirement. She was honored as NAACP Augusta, Georgia Branch Woman of the Year 2000. In 2001, she was recognized as one of the outstanding graduates of historically black colleges and universities at the 26th National Conference on Blacks in Higher Education in Washington, D.C. For being a trailblazer, a role model, and breaking the glass ceiling as the first female African American woman in the history of the Signal Corps to be promoted to Brigadier General and continuing to serve the military and veteran community, Brigadier General Velma Von L. Richardson is inducted into the United States Army Women's Foundation 2023 Hall of Fame.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for this honor. To all of our distinguished guests, I knew that there would be a number of folks who would talk about women's history, so I'm not going to talk about women's history. I thought I'd tell you about my superpowers. Yeah, I actually have some. And as I sat here listening to all of the accolades and the comments from the other inductees, I realized that mine aren't that different from many of yours. And I believe I have the superpower of grace. And the components of that are, first of all, gratitude. Everybody's talked about how grateful they are. And first of all, grateful to God for the many blessings that have been bestowed upon us. I have somebody else right behind God that I need to be grateful to, and actually not just need to be, but I am grateful to, and that's my husband of 42 years. And he's been my biggest inspiration and supporter throughout my career. And any woman who's been married knows that you need a strong, not so egotistical spouse to run all of the things. Even when you talk about the men, they know their spouses make a big difference in their lives. And so for me, my husband, Bill, has been that for me as well. So I'm grateful, though, to, you saw one of the pictures that was up there is my commissioning. My grandmother was on one side, and she's a trailblazer in her own right. And my aunt gave me my first oath of office in 1973. My aunt joined the Army the year I was born. And so she became my inspiration for joining the military. And unlike what several others have said, I knew what I was going to do when I graduated from high school. One, I was going to college. That was non-negotiable. And two, I knew that I had decided when I was in the 8th grade that I was joining the Army. So, you know, as things came about, and I'm a pre-West Point commissionee, being commissioned in 1973. I just knew that that it was going to be a wonderful thing, but I did only plan to stay 2 years. That's what the commitment was at the time. But as others have said, it was a wonderful life, and so I decided to stay, and things just got better and better and better. And then, of course, the men and women that I've served with over time, I am just so thankful for their service, for their support, and the way that that they perform their duties in support of all of the missions that I was in charge of at the time. And so that's my gratitude piece. And there's so many others that I could start to name, because a bunch of y'all are sitting here in the room, and I'm afraid that if I start to name folks, I'll end up missing you, but you know who you are. And I'm looking in your eyes, okay? All right. So you know who you are, and you've been just wonderful. So I have just a significant amount of gratitude for that. But also I have a superpower of resilience. And you know, when you get lemons, you're supposed to make lemonade, and I made a lot of lemonade. But that's one of the blessings that I have been given through grace. And General Stitt talked about people and caring about people, as others have talked about that. And so being altruistic and understanding how much people matter in the whole business of our Army, and caring for them, taking care of them, making sure that they're treated with dignity and respect. That was in any job I had, my most important mission was to make sure that the people got taken care of, and I knew if that happened, the mission would take care of itself. And then God gave me another superpower, common sense. Thank goodness for that, because otherwise I would be, I would not have made it this far. But common sense has taken me a long way. And finally, endurance. Getting through a 31-year Army career takes endurance. Getting through a 42-year marriage takes endurance. Okay? Getting to have family who still talk to you takes endurance. Having friends that you've been best friends for over 50 years takes endurance and a lot of work. And so those are my superpowers. And if you didn't quite catch that, that spells out grace. And I believe that is my primary superpower that has gotten me to this point. And so I live by a short quote. I'm not sure, I haven't actually been able to find out who the specific author is, so this isn't mine, but I do try to live by it. And it goes, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character, and character matters. And watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. I love all of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate this honor.
Our next inductee is Command Sergeant Major Deborah L. Strickland, U.S. Army retired. An Army combat veteran, mentor, coach, and activist, Command Sergeant Major Deborah Strickland achieved many firsts during her 36-year career. Command Sergeant Major Strickland served as the first Command Sergeant Major of the Installation Management Command in 2006. Before that, she was the first woman Command Sergeant Major of the Installation Management Agency in 2002. She was IMCOM's chief advocate for quality of life issues and developed many Army programs, such as the First Sergeant's Barracks Initiative. She was also key in planning for IMCOM's future, ensuring that IMCOM had the right vision and the right strategy to support a changing Army, an Army at war. Throughout her career, she had key assignments as manager of the U.S. Army Europe Sergeant Major Morales program, as a major Army command proponent for the Army's uniform regulation, which led to her selection to serve as at the Pentagon as one of the enlisted proponent action officers for Army Regulation 670-1, the Army Uniform Regulation. She also served on the Armed Forces Inaugural Committee as the Army Strength Manager for the National Security Agency's enlisted assignments and as the Command Sergeant Major for Fort Belvoir. She culminated her career as the first female Command Sergeant Major and Base Camp Sergeant Major for Base Support Group Kabul. Command Sergeant Major Strickland cared deeply about mentoring members of the Army's enlisted force and believed if you educate the NCO, you educate the soldiers they lead. Command Sergeant Major Strickland continues to focus on improving fellow veterans' lives through several means, including awarding scholarships in memory of her husband, Sergeant Major Larry L. Strickland, who was killed in the attack on the Pentagon. Army senior leaders have said of Command Sergeant Major Strickland that she delivered the right leadership at the right time and at the right place, in the right place. She was totally selfless and devoted to the Army and to her soldiers. For extraordinary and groundbreaking leadership and devotion to soldiers and their families, Command Sergeant Major Deborah L. Strickland is inducted into the U.S. Army Women's Foundation 2023 Hall of Fame.
This is wonderful to have a microphone in front of me again. I know my family has been waiting a little impatiently for my turn up here. And it's kind of important that I start out with saying that my 10-year-old grandson last week showed me his report card and was very proud that he got a 1 on his management of time and his self. You know, he thought that, yeah, I see him. But he's been good. He's been good. I would like to recognize our senior leader in my career field. I looked desperately for my pin lapel, and I believe it's on a jacket somewhere that's been stored, Sarah. But thank you so much for sharing your remarks with us. And I would tell you that I've always believed that the 42 Alpha field, has always been the career choice for me because it put me next to soldiers and making sure that they survived and were successful in their Army efforts. And General Carney said it best: no matter what career field you're in, there will be a general, adjutant general take you into the Army, and an adjutant general will close you out of the Army. And I think that's probably a statement that most of us can agree with. Thank you, General McDonald, for the opportunity to be present today among some wonderful, wonderful women. And I'm not going to try to follow all those remarks. What I'll do is tell you, when you're enlisted, you start and you end most programs, you hold them, and you realize there's very little you can bring to the table that hasn't already been expressed, and you're looking for brevity at the moment so that we can have a chance to speak with each other at the conclusion of it. So I thank all of you for recognizing some small part of me that might have contributed to our Army. And I'm going to do better about acknowledging those that bring more to the table rather than just sitting there with them and being appreciative of them. So I want you to know I appreciate it very much. I have to tell you that it was my husband that made that remark about if you educate the NCO, then you educate the soldier. But I helped him craft that statement. I would like to acknowledge my family. My sister has been with me for a very long time. She's one of 3 my mother raised as a sole parent, and she has been my best friend, so she represents that side of my family. My daughter through my husband, Julia. I want you to stand up, honey. Stand up. You just can't shake them sometimes. And so I would tell you, through her, I've had the best experience of being a grandparent with my grandson, Brendan, and my grandson, Dylan. And when she tells me how much Dylan's going to cost her by the time he finishes college, I could not work the first 5 years after I retired because I was doing child care. I tell her she doesn't know what he cost me. I miss all of you. These occasions allow me a chance to be in your presence again, and I want to thank you very much for the chance to be here. Ma'am.
And our last honoree this afternoon is our is our, I apologize for that. There we go. There we go. Oh, wait, no, apologize for that. Our last honoree this afternoon is our Special Recognition Champions Award. I would like to invite the board member. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, one quick second here. Just a quick second. Yeah, okay, here we go. Our last honoree this afternoon is our Special Recognition Champion Awards. I would like to invite board member Miss Elizabeth Ann Helm Frazier to present this first award.
Good afternoon. I'm not going to ask if you can hear me because I'm a master sergeant and I know that you can hear me. And I'm the oldest of 5. I want to just take 1 second to thank Brigadier General Richardson. When she arrived at Fort Gordon, I was an Army career counselor, and in order to keep a soldier in the Army, he said, I'll stay and re-enlist if you can get Brigadier General Richardson. Do not tell a Master Sergeant career counselor that. And so, ma'am, you re-enlisted that soldier for me, and I just want to say thank you very much for doing that. I'm here to talk about Mr. Philpott. A lot of people in here know him. Mr. Philpott is the man that had the dream. He had the dream of recognizing African American first in the military by doing monuments so that generations from now, when we're all gone, children who will be adults, have children, who have children, will go to this monument park and see those African Americans who made contributions and devotions and dedications in military service. I think one of his best projects was the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion that is in the Parker First, along with the Buffalo Soldier Monument, Henry O. Flipper, General Grissom, General Robinson, the late General Colin Powell, the 5-5 all-black parachute unit, Kathy Williams, who reversed her name and is known as the first female Buffalo soldier, William Kathy, and the jewel of them all, the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion, where we say the men are in good company now. You have Mr. Philpott's bio, but I just want to take 1 second here. There is somebody that wants to say something to Mr. Philpott, and then I'm going to sit down. Hey, Mrs. King, how are you?
Oh, I'm just...
Okay, I got Mr. Philpott here.
Oh, my God. Let me talk to him.
Start talking.
Congratulations, Mr. Philpott. You know, without you, it would not be 1688. No one would have known who we were. Thank you so much for making our names and our deeds out there. We owe it all to you, and blessings to you. The honors couldn't go to a greater person. Love you so very much. I wish I could be there to be part of that ceremony. But it's so nice knowing that you're last receiving some of your accolades. Love you so very much.
I love you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Corporal Lena Bell King, who turned 100 January 21st, and she is one of the living 688 members, and it was her idea to do this for Mr. Philpott. So thank you.
The room wasn't this full when I sat down. Good afternoon. I'm the head of my house, but my wife is the neck. And she turns it in the way she wants to. It is a pleasure and a unique opportunity to be here this afternoon. I want to thank President McDonald, the advisory board, and all the executive leaders here for this unique honor and privilege to be here today. And Beth, I want to thank you for all the telephone calls and the emails that I sent trying to get things right. My wife is not here today. I know my place. She chose the grandkids over me. So they're in Vegas having a wonderful time. And I have two daughters. One is a lawyer, and one teaches at Defense Language. She's an associate professor at the Defense Language Institute in Spanish. But I have a granddaughter. I have 3 grandsons. I had a granddaughter. She had a bunk bed, and her dad was too slow taking the top bunk off. She's 12. She sawed it off herself. At 2, she was tying her shoes. I said, how did you learn to tie your shoes? She said, I just watched. And so in daycare, she was tying all the kids' shoes. So she gave a speech the other day. She said, I'm going to be president. She read the announcement of the student body. That reminds me of the first black jet pilot when she was in 5th grade. The teacher asked her, what do you want to be? She said, I want to be a secretary on the moon. I take my short, no, don't want to waste too much time, but it's always time to thank people. I want to thank Mrs. King, who pushed to get this nomination. I want to thank Edna for all the work she's done since the monument and with the monument, with the Congressional Gold Medal, the opera by Blair Underwood. They've taken the women and family members on a tour of the World War II Museum in June. I especially want to thank Master Sergeant Elizabeth Helms Frazier. She was a quiet person. She was the first person to call me on the telephone and ask to be a part of this. She was from Maryland, and Edna was second. And she calls these ladies, Mrs. King, every day. She used to take Mrs. Rudder to get her driver's license and groceries and those types of things, and she always participating. And she was asked by Mr. Tyler Perry to come down to the movie set to help him. She went down for a week, put up in a hotel, chauffeur driven. She was able to advise him on the movie. I want to thank you, Elizabeth. You don't get much praise. Your name does not appear in the papers. I want people to know what she does and what she has done and continue to do for the 688. She calls Mrs. King just about every day. My wife says she married a Navy man but not a project man. So rather than trying to call everybody by name, if you ever helped on any of the Buffalo Soldier monuments or any project, raise your hand. I sold her print when she was and there are some people who've been here with me for 30 years, Mr. Lancaster. There's one general, when we started the Buffalo Soldier monument, the 688 monument, we had $1,000 in the bank. The first bill was $3,000 from the architect. I called my friend Greg whenever I needed money. He'd loan me money interest-free. So he's been doing that for quite some time. I want to thank you, Greg, very much. Mrs. King was the last name that we put on the monument. We were packing up from Federal Express, and her daughter called. And we were in Vegas, and it was my first Uber ride. And Mrs. King was a friend of my aunt, Alma Philpott, who was a 688 member. And the first commander of the WAC in Europe when the 688 arrived was Lieutenant Colonel Margaret Philpott, not related. But anyway, I want to thank you very much. There's a gentleman here, General George Price, Brigadier General. And General Price is the brother of Leontine Price, the great opera singer. If you see a turtle sitting on a post, you know somebody put it there. So I can't thank all of you, but there's one person. How do you build a $250,000 monument with $80,000? You have a great website manager. My cousin Keith does it free. I used to feed him baby food. I gave him the beans and the carrots. I ate apples. There's another lady with the 688 does not get the credit she deserves. That's Abby Noel Campbell. She was the XO of the 688. Her brother was a Tuskegee Airman that dropped the first bomb during the war. And when 688 had problems, it was her brother who came in and calmed the waters as a medical officer. The other person, Abby Noel Campbell, donated her body to science. So I think she should get a lot of credit. Keep in mind, I have not found any 688 member that was dishonorably discharged. And you owe that to the XO. There's a lady here, I know some of you came from California, named Cherie. I don't know whether you hear Cherie? Stand up. I can't remember your last name. Huh? Emerson. I know my time is up, but you must understand this. The Lord picks the most unusual people to do the things that are needed the most. You can see Cerise. And we were on a tight margin for the dedication of the monument. And a lady at a woman's hand touched that application to the Secretary of the Army. She sent it to the next command, another lady had it. Sharice was tracking that all the way. We met at a fundraiser. Not many people showed up. And the next place, Sharice tracked it. And the next place, Sharice tracked it. When it got to the Secretary of the Army, they put it in her hand, and she gave it to the guy who walked straight into the Army. We met the deadline. And so, and while there was the post office and a lot of things named after 688 women in the project, the most important thing is, I got 2 emails today. The lady said, we're doing a lesson plan on the 688 for elementary school. The 103-year-old lady did a Zoom call for a group of 6th and 7th graders in New Jersey. And they are now in history competition. They're up to the state level. So that is what it's all about. I want to thank you all very much, the Army Women's Foundation. And of all the monuments that I've had a privilege to be involved in, the 688 is the closest to my heart. I love all of them. I got close to the women and their families, and it became more than stones and bricks. Thank you all very much.
And last, our awardee this afternoon, but, oh, there we go. Can you hear me now? There we go. Outstanding. And our last awardee this afternoon, but certainly not the least, Staff Sergeant Abby M. Davis, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant Davis championed on behalf of our Army women to change the AR 670-1. Woo! Woo! A personal thank you. Authorizing the wear of ponytails in all uniforms. In 2021, the Army released updated grooming and appearance regulations after the 670-1 board convened specifically to consider 670-1 impacts on minorities. Through this board, initially, women were granted the ability to wear a ponytail only while wearing an advanced Army combat helmet, combat vehicle crewman helmet, or other helmet where the bun interfered with the proper wear of the helmet. Through Staff Sergeant Davis's grassroots approach to solve a problem faced by Army women, regardless of uniform, Staff Sergeant Davis facilitated and updated the Army's grooming regulation, allowing women the option to wear a ponytail in all uniforms. Outstanding, personal to me. For her leadership, courage to recognize the need for change, and successfully advocating for that change, Staff Sergeant Abby M. Davis is presented the Special Recognition Champions Award.
Thank you so much. I was hoping you were going to skip over us so I didn't have to do all of this, but now that I'm here, I do have some things I want to share. So I just want to say thank you to the Army Women's Foundation. Frankly, before this experience, I didn't know this organization existed, but now that I know it exists, I know this is going to become a part of my career. I know as I continue to develop and mentor soldiers, this is going to be a resource that I introduce them to. Now all of you are probably asking yourself, why isn't the ponytail lady wearing a ponytail? And frankly, I grappled with this decision of how I was going to wear my hair in this uniform. And I talked to several people and I said, you know, this has kind of become part of my identity, being the woman who championed this paper to facilitate this change. But when it comes down to it, I feel more polished with the bun in this uniform. But the message is this, it's about choice. It's about choice. Day to day, you will see me in my OCPs wearing a ponytail with earrings, and I think my soldiers appreciate that. Right now, I'm an AIT instructor. I'm a all-source analyst. Where is she? There she is. I teach down at Fort Huachuca. I'm an AIT instructor. And I will tell you, when this first came out, I was in my classroom. And another NCO came into my classroom with the ALAR Act and said, oh, we got to talk to all these soldiers because they're going to want to wear this ponytail. And she was upset about it because it was another thing that we had to regulate as NCOs, right? She didn't know I was the one that championed it. I just turned to her and I said, Sergeant so-and-so, I won't put her name out there. Sergeant, you know, this is a great opportunity for us to show these young soldiers what they can do. And I can tell you, I walked into a classroom and I said, Private Smith, you can wear a ponytail. Next thing I know, her hair's down, right? So they fully embraced it, and I absolutely love that, because the next day when I showed up to work for the first time with my ponytail, I caught myself in the reflection, and I said, oh my gosh, that is out of regulation, right? So it's just so amazing how indoctrinated we all get. And it's so amazing how a simple choice makes such a difference. And I can tell you, sitting behind all of these wonderful women, I wouldn't have been able to write this paper without them. We all contribute something, and it's a cascading effect. And I just want to say that I appreciate all of you, and hearing your stories has just been an absolute blessing for me being here today. So it's so simple, right? A ponytail. It's so simple, but for a lot of us, it's really important. And I can tell you that without Major General Tammy Smith, this wouldn't have happened. So I started talking to Major General Smith on Twitter about this, and she was open to conversation. And with her support, we wrote a white paper on the analytics, pros, cons, how we recommended the update to the regulation be written, and she truly lifted our voices up. I'm just a staff sergeant in the United States Army, you know. My voice doesn't carry as much weight as hers, and she contributed her voice to our initiative. So she's the first person I want to thank. Secondly, I'd like to thank my command team. Like I said before, I am a member of the 305th MI Battalion out of Fort Huachuca as an AIT instructor. They were just as excited about this award as I was, and more than that, they encourage me every day to share my story with our soldiers. I have such an opportunity to develop soldiers before they get out to the force, and I take that responsibility incredibly seriously. So I just want to thank my command team for supporting my being here today. And finally, I want to thank my parents, who are sitting right over there. Stand up, you two. So I don't come from an Army family. And my parents have learned every acronym I've thrown at them. They've learned about every Army culture-ism that exists. And if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be here or, frankly, be able to want to continue my service. Finally, General McDonald said something to me earlier today when she was introducing me to the inductees. She said, "This is the next generation." And I thought, holy smokes, that's a whole lot of pressure. and then I thought, one of the ladies mentioned it earlier, as I was sitting there, and I was hearing about all of these firsts, and I said, well, there's not going to be any more firsts for me. But that's not a bad thing. And it makes me so happy to know that I am not going to fight the uphill battle that a lot of these women fought. And I am just so grateful to now be a part of this family, this organization. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Staff Sergeant. Through our partnerships with the Army Women's Museum at Fort Lee, Virginia, we have been able to secure a place and a house, house a permanent Hall of Fame plaque listing all of your names. Now, many thanks to Ms. Tracy Bradford, curator of the Army Women's Museum, Fort Lee, Virginia. So thank you again, Ms. She here? See, where is she? Can you wave your hand? Thank you. And now I will turn the podium back over to Brigadier General McDonald for closing remarks.
What a fabulous, I do have prepared remarks here, I do, and I always get to this point, and I am so overwhelmed with so many emotions, so many highs, so many lows, tears, joy, happiness. What a tremendous, tremendous afternoon. But an afternoon like this doesn't happen by accident, so there are a lot of thank yous that need to go out, and the first has to be to this phenomenal woman standing behind me. Just so gifted, and a voice like velvet. I mean, she is just magnificent. You did a beautiful job. Thank you so much. General Stitt, thank you for being here. Thank you for staying the entire time. And hearing the stories. You have had to have heard some wonderful things today that I know that you're going to take away and hopefully repeat, because these are stories worth being retold. So thank you very much. Alice and your team, it is a labor of love, but it's fantastic, and I know everybody feels so good about that scholarship presentation that you did, and all the stories are interesting. Thank you so much, and her team, who spends hours doing that, to include Beth Spitzley, who's over there, just hours combing through all that information. So thank you very much. And then I have to say, Command Sergeant Major Cindy Pritchett snuck in the back. She was TDY. She's here. She is the chairperson of our Hall of Fame committee. So let's give it up for Cindy. But more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, what about the class of 2023 Hall of Famers? Wonderful. You have made this Women's History Month observance so extra special, and to hear your stories and to hear them in this storied place, the National Museum of the United States Army, how special is that? So thank you very, very much. We look forward to being able to have conversations with you a little bit later on. Our sponsors, they haven't gone by. We couldn't do it without you. Again, thank you so much for your support, making this happen, and providing scholarships. Okay, before I end out, I do want to thank you all for coming, but the last portion of the day is the wonderful cake cutting ceremony, so I'm going to invite all our class of 2023 to come forward and our 2 scholars to come forward, obviously champions, to cut the cake with Colonel Walt Gunning, who is the chair of this program, and also Command Sergeant Major Pritchett, if you will come forward. And before I depart, I want to extend my huge gratitude to the board of directors, all our volunteers, Beth Spitzley, Jessica DeFata, who's here from Fort Lee to help us out. Their names are over here on this fabulous screen, big. And you know, I like it how we've got the spouses on there because it is a team effort. If your name is on this slide, please stand to be recognized. Thank you. And back to Dahlia for the last time.
Thank you, Ann. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What an inspiring and empowering day this has been. Thank you for joining us. Your presence truly made this day a special day for our inductees and our scholarship recipients. Now, there are many more upcoming foundation events that we want to invite you to include, now this is going to be a shameless plug, to include the upcoming session for the Female Mentoring and Morale Program, Women's History Month session that will be scheduled for tomorrow evening. So if anyone is interested in viewing this virtual Zoom session, please see me afterwards. My twin sister and I are the founder and the executive director for it. A very, very important program that we're using to support the women in the military. For more information, see the Army Women's Foundation Network.org. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, no more shameless plugs. This concludes the formal portion of today's ceremony. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please join us for a reception afterwards and have a great Army Day.